Hello, my name is Jeremy Roa, and this is the last practice of the Anglo class, so I will start reading my answers out loud. The first exercise is a picture exercise. I chose picture B, and this picture mainly shows the fire of the first battle, which for me will initiate the conflict of at least the half of the story. In this image, we can see Beowulf's strength and his all potential, twisting and ripping Grendel's arm completely off its socket after Grendel decided to burst into Herod, leaving him fatally wounded and letting him slink back to his swampy place to finally die. The picture alone represents a real heroic Beowulf, who even prided himself for being able to slay Grendel without using a sword. And this event creates later battles in the story, and for that reason, I believe it is the most representative picture out of all of them pictures showed. The second exercise is the analysis of the sonates. So in the first question, my answer is that it is an English or a Shakespearean sonnet because it is a 14-line poem first. It has an iambic pentameter and it follows a specific rhyming scheme with three quatrains and a final couplet. In the second answer, I will say that the first name of this sonnet is Sonnet 130 because of the Shakespearean numeration of his 154 sonnets. And its second name is My Mistress's Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun because it is the first line feature in this sonnet or in this poem. Then we should do soapstone analysis, and for speaker I chose Shakespeare, who is an English poet, a lover, and a famous celebrity in this particular era. The occasion will be to expose his affair with a one-of-a-kind woman that happened to be a prostitute. The audience, I will choose his fandom, noblemen, readers who criticize his lifestyle. And its purpose, I chose the word defense because the purpose of this was basically to present his troubled decision of loving a woman who, besides the fact of not belonging in his famous world, and who was definitely not at the level of Shakespeare, was not attractive at all. And it is like the typical I don't know why, but I love you situation represented in the 19th century. The subject, I will say, that is the dichotomy of love. The sonnet could definitely answer a couple of questions Shakespeare was probably asking himself in that time, like how can a person be so unattractive yet loving and captivating, or should I be considered crazy because of liking this what people call atrocity? And finally, the tone, I will say that the tone is very ironic, paralogical, dichotomic, contrasting, and troubled. Searching the figures of speech, I was able to find similes in the first two lines, for example, saying her eyes are like nothing like the sun and her eyes are way less red than coral. I also found metaphors. The second name in itself, it's a great example as human characteristics are being attributed to abstract things or objects. I found hyperboles Also, there is a hyperbole in the second line saying that as coral is far more red than her lips red, and considering that the color of corals cannot be referenced as red whatsoever, it's an exaggeration. And I also find a couple of oxymorons, but my favorite is the contrasting idea all over the sonnet in the lines 9 and 10, saying that I love to hear her speak, but her voice sounds terrible, basically. The contrasting elements I was able to find were if snow be white, why then her breasts are done, contrasting the color of snow with her breast. And also when he says that I love to hear her speak, yet well I know that music hath a far more pleasing sound, contrasting her ugly tone of voice with music. Then we had to do the short story analysis on short story, and I chose the second battle of Beowulf. So basically, the basic introduction and the setting occurs in the land of Herod, and Beowulf, is the primary character, along with Grendel's mother and Hrothgar. And the secondary characters in this story are King Hermod and the Goths. And the basic situation is Beowulf returns from slaying a monster called Grendel, and while he's being presented to his sleeping quarters in the castle, Grendel's mother, another terrible creature, descends to attack Herod in frenzy and vengeance. The rising action starts when Beowulf, indifferent to death, unfeared and convinced in his victory, prepares himself to combat by handling a sword and armor of Anfeerne to fight Grendel's mother, while Hrothgar takes care of the gods. The conflict is the vengeful mother of the monster returns to Herod to destroy Beowulf and in the land to recover the corpse of her son. The climax happens when Beowulf starts fighting the monster's mother, who, thirst of revenge uncontainable, drags him to her court, and right there he tries to smash her and slay her with all of his power. And yeah, that part. And in the resolution, Beowulf is celebrated with a banquet, and he decides to rest, as that is well deserved. He kills the monster, of course, in the climax, and Hrothgar praises him and gives him 12 treasures as rewards, so they can return back home. And in the fourth exercise, we were asked to set up a little bio of an author, and I chose Edgar Rice Burroughs as my author. And many could think that this author's names alone is not interesting, but what if I told you that these main sci-fi characters were the late inspiration for our famous superheroes, such as Superman, for example. And Edgar Rice Burroughs, an American novelist whose stars and stories created a well-known classic that will later become the inspiration of many authors. Edgar was born on September the 1st in 1975 in Chicago, Illinois. He was the son of a wealthy family, primarily his father, who procured his education was basically the greatest. Some say that Burroughs was actually destined to writing, as he had many job failures. His life was basically surrendered with failure, and he needed to take care of his wife and his 3 children. He even tried to join the military from he was also expelled because the sergeant says that he had a weak heart. And yeah, I have a lot of details right here, but I feel like the time it's very extensive. So I will jump into the Tarzan's last chapter, which is the last exercise basically, and this ended up being a huge surprise to me, as the only versions of Tarzan of the Apes I've ever watched and being interested in were the Disney animated movies of Tarzan. In these motion pictures, Tarzan, as well as the characters included, such as Jane, Archimedes, and even Kala, are portrayed as emotional characters. They do everything based on emotion, whereas in the Burroughs version, in the original version, everyone seems to have a little bit of sense. Even Tarzan, who grew up in an African jungle, had a little bit of sense. So, in the animated movie, the ending, it's basically Clayton taking over his own life, fighting against Tarzan in an attempt to kidnap all of the gorillas to sell them on an English to the English pirates. Jane falls in love with Tarzan, and Professor Archimedes tells the rescue float to inform the crown that they were never found in the expedition. So they end up leaving with Tarzan and the gorillas in the end. And in the Burroughs original, Tarzan follows Jane to Wisconsin, where a marriage ceremony is being celebrated. It's basically about to happen between Jane and Robert Candler, a man she did not love, and she was just forced to marry because his father owed him money due to the failure of the expedition. Tarzan saves Jane from a fire in the forest, basically occasioned by the temperature and the winds, and she went for a walk alone, and she got involved in that flame going on. Jane thought Tarzan abandoned her, but he explains what happens after the last day that they saw each other. Tarzan confronts her about marrying a man that she does not love, and she explains that the deal that they had between Candler and the father. And then he asked if she loved him, and a full grown-up Jane clearly explained to Tarzan that that even if they were in love, they did not belong to each other, since she could not be with a man who grew up devouring the flesh of animals and his steed, and for many other reasons. Tarzan understands it all, and then he even dislikes the idea of her marrying another man, and especially a man like Candler, but convinces her to marry Clayton, which is the antagonist in the other movie. But yeah, that's what basically happens at the end. So I thank you very much, Professor, for this amazing class. I truly enjoyed everything so much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.